We do have to wait for a few more folks to show up, but we're going to try to get started so that everybody knows. We do have, we're informal at this point, but Mr. Phelps has to leave at 8:30. Ms. Schmitt has to leave at 8:45, so we're going to do the best we can. And we apologize. When we scheduled this, we didn't know that we were going to have a swearing in on top of everything else. So we do apologize for that. And hopefully Ms. Castro will be here in just a minute. I ask all our guests to please take their seats. Ms. Castro having arrived, call this Subcommittee on Oversight and Investigations will now come to order. I now recognize myself for a 5-minute opening statement. As U.S. athletes prepare to compete in the Paris Olympics, a cloud of uncertainty hangs over the reliability of international anti-doping enforcement, which is supposed to eliminate the use of certain performance-enhancing drugs. This committee has been alarmed to learn from news reports that several swimmers representing the People's Republic of China tested positive for banned performance-enhancing substances and then went on to compete in the 2021 Tokyo Olympics. Just last week, 11 of these swimmers were again named to the People's Republic of China's 2024 Olympic team. All of this comes after the World Anti-Doping Agency, or WADA, ignored signs of systemic Russian doping for years. 7 years ago, this Oversight Committee held a hearing on ways to strengthen the international anti-doping system. It is unfortunate that we have to be here again. Two witnesses from that 2017 hearing are back with us today. Premier Olympian, Mr. Michael Phelps, and the CEO of the United States Anti-Doping Agency, or USADA, Mr. Travis Tygart. We are pleased to welcome another outstanding Olympic swimmer, Ms. Allison Schmitt, to join us today so we can revisit doping in sports ahead of next month's Summer Olympics. I want to start off by reminding everyone what Mr. Phelps told us 7 years ago, because it bears repeating. He said, quote, "If we allow our confidence in fair play to erode, we will undermine the power of sport and the goals and dreams of future generations. The time to act is now," end quote. I'm glad Mr. Phelps highlighted the damage performance-enhancing drugs has on our country's youth athletes, and I'm disappointed that WADA has not seemed to heed that call. Children join sports teams and clubs believing that the system is mostly fair and that cheaters will be punished. The importance of sports for our country's children cannot be understated. Sports empower children by teaching them life lessons, building their confidence, showing them the meaning of hard work, and offering some of them opportunities to represent our country and make a career. I myself have had the opportunity to see my own children grow and learn from competitive swimming. In fact, last week was very exciting in my household because 1 year ago in high school regionals, my son Davis competed against Olympian Thomas Heilman, who at age 17 is the youngest male swimmer to qualify for Team USA since Michael Phelps. The joke at my house was that at one point in the race, they were tied. That would be the point where the starter says, "Take your marks." Foundational to the Olympics is the trust that clean athletes, both aspiring and current Olympians, have in the system to keep cheaters out. Doping leads to cynicism in sports and inevitably disappointment for aspiring athletes. As I'm sure Ms. Schmitt and Mr. Phelps can attest to, we cannot overemphasize the dedication, sacrifices, and training required of our Olympians, competing at the very highest in what I believe to be the most prestigious athletic level. Youth athletes dedicate themselves by putting in countless hours of training, pushing both physical and mental limits in the hopes of one day being an Olympian. Athletes miss birthdays and holidays to train so that they can achieve success the right way, on their own merit. Mr. Phelps has previously said he didn't take a single day off for over 5 years just so he could be at the best, to be the best at what he does. Doping irrevocably undermines the purpose of that sacrifice by allowing competitors who really want all the glory without putting in the work. Is it fair that we encourage our youth to invest so much of their time if on the greatest stage consequences are not expected for certain countries' athletes? That is why I'm disappointed that Mr. Banka, the president of WADA, refused our invitation to testify before this subcommittee today to discuss his role in upholding the integrity of anti-doping testing and enforcement in international sports competitions. WADA received nearly $4 million in U.S. taxpayer dollars through Congress last fiscal year. Their refusal to appear today calls into question their commitment to accountability. And perhaps if they're not going to do the job, we shouldn't even fund them. Mr. Banka and WADA have hidden today rather than explain how WADA let over 20 swimmers representing the People's Republic of China compete in international competitions after they tested positive for a banned substance. Cheating athletes take away spots and take away medals from clean athletes. The integrity and sanctity of sports is critical for the Olympians competing, but also for the children who dream one day to be an Olympian or are excited that they once were in the pool with an Olympian. We will keep a seat open for Mr. Banka just in case, I doubt it, but just in case he decides to join us. I want to thank the three of you who made it here today despite your very busy schedules ahead of the Paris Olympics, and I yield back. Now recognize Ms. Castor, the ranking member of the subcommittee, for her 5-minute opening statement.
Well, Mr. Chairman, thank you very much for convening this hearing to investigate illicit doping in sports and the troubling questions swirling around the World Anti-Doping Agency, especially with the Summer Olympics starting next month in Paris. Americans do not like cheaters, and they will not tolerate organizations that give cheaters a pass. WADA was established in 1999 as the international agency responsible for developing and coordinating anti-doping rules across all sports and countries, as well as monitoring compliance with those rules. Importantly, WADA has the power to investigate allegations of doping and to enforce penalties when the World Anti-Doping Code is violated. However, recent troubling reports suggest that WADA did not do its job in the case of 23 Chinese swimmers who tested positive for the performance-enhancing drug TMZ just months before the Tokyo Games. We need to know, is it worse than that? Is the Chinese Communist Party or the People's Republic of China paying WADA to look the other way? Thanks to investigative reporting, it appears that in January 2021, the Chinese anti-doping agency, known as CHINADA, collected 60 samples from Chinese swimmers staying in the same hotel for a national championship swim meet. Nearly 6 weeks later, in March of 2021, test results were reported to WADA, showing that 23 of the swimmers tested positive for TMZ. CHINADA suggested that TMZ positive tests were due to food in a contaminated kitchen that served the athletes. CHINADA did not impose a rule violation against the swimmers or make the matter public. WADA also kept the violation secret and shockingly agreed to allow the swimmers to compete. Any amount of TMZ found in an athlete's system is a violation of the rules, and presumptive sanctions are required. Yet 13 of the 23 athletes that tested positive went on to compete in the Games in Tokyo. And some have been named to the Chinese team for the upcoming Olympics in Paris. This makes no sense. Why did WADA accept CHINADA's conclusions? Why did WADA keep the violations secret? Why were Chinese athletes treated differently than athletes from other countries? Why were the Chinese swimmers not provisionally suspended? What kind of scientific testing did WADA perform when assessing the results, and why won't it share the details? Why were the required procedural steps not followed? Did purported payments from the PRC to WADA influence WADA's decision-making? These are unanswered questions are why I am especially disappointed that WADA refused the committee's invitation to testify today. Its lack of transparency is troubling, especially this close to the Paris Olympics. As the international enforcer of anti-doping rules, WADA must provide these answers and be held accountable. As our witnesses know well, the Olympic Games are one of the most visible and elite athletic competitions in the world and set the standards for sports at all levels. Maintaining the integrity of the competition at a level playing field and safety of athletes at the Games is paramount. And I'm interested in accountability through the funds the U.S. taxpayers provide to WADA. I serve on another congressional committee. It's a special committee on the strategic competition with the Chinese Communist Party, where my colleagues there also called for more accountability. I want to thank the Olympic athletes, Ms. Schmitt, Mr. Phelps, for being here today and representing other athletes across the globe. I applaud you for representing the United States of America on the world stage and becoming champions that we're proud of. Your hard work and dedication and commitment to excellence inspires millions. Thanks to the U.S. Anti-Doping Agency as well, Mr. Tiger, for your presence here. Your work to ensure that anti-doping rules are followed and that our American athletes are held to the highest standards helps set an example for the rest of the world to follow. True champions don't cheat. They compete fairly and they follow the rules. The International Olympic Committee affirms in its mission the movement is intended to encourage and support the promotion of ethics and good governance in sport, to protect clean athletes and the integrity of sport by leading the fight against doping and by taking action against all forms of manipulation of competitions and related corruption. WADA needs to take this seriously. Thank you, and I yield back.
Gentlelady yields back. Now recognize the chairwoman of the full committee, Ms. Rogers, for her 5-minute opening statement.
Thank you, Chair Griffith, and thank you to our highly decorated panel of witnesses today whose Olympic careers have inspired an entire generation of Americans. Tonight's hearing comes at an important moment as we're just 1 month away from the start of the 2024 Summer Olympic Games in Paris. We will be examining how the World Anti-Doping Agency's policies and their failure to enforce those policies on the use of banned performance-enhancing drugs and how that is undermining the integrity of the Olympic Games. It's completely unacceptable that the World Anti-Doping Agency president, Vitold Benka, whose agency received over $3 million in U.S. taxpayer dollars this past year, declined to join us tonight. Doping scandals have real effects on our athletes, including American swimmers, who must abide by the strictest anti-doping standards enforced by USADA and include requirements like random testing. These anti-doping standards should be applied evenly to ensure a level playing field and that the best athlete wins. Recent reporting unveiled that just weeks before the 2021 Olympic Games in Tokyo, 23 members of the Chinese swimming team tested positive for a banned substance, trimetazine, or TMZ. The Chinese authorities dismissed the positive test, telling the World Anti-Doping Agency that this was all a mistake because the banned drug, which is found only in pill form, somehow ended up in the kitchen of a hotel that all 23 swimmers were staying at, and they all somehow unknowingly ingested this banned substance. The World Anti-Doping Agency's review somehow concluded that this explanation was plausible and no further investigation was necessary. It's important to note that those swimmers won several medals, including 3 golds. WADA has consistently failed to be transparent or accept any responsibility for its actions. And it's not just the U.S. Congress. WADA is declining a hearing invitation from the German Bundestag that was scheduled earlier this month. How many more Olympic athletes have to lose out on winning medals and proudly singing their country's national anthem before the World Anti-Doping Agency decides to enforce its rules uniformly? Everyone's watching the Olympics in Paris in their homes next month should know that the system is not rigged. against athletes who compete the right way. I look forward to hearing from all of you on this important topic. I yield back.
Ms. Rogers yields back. Now recognize the ranking member of the full committee, Mr. Pallone, for his 5-minute opening statement.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Every 4 years, the world comes together to watch the best athletes in the world compete for gold at the Olympics. And over the last couple of weeks, American athletes have been competing against each other for the opportunity to represent the U.S. at the Olympics next month in Paris. And I was thrilled to see that 2 New Jersey swimmers, Matt Fallon and Jack Alexey, earned spots on the Olympic swim team at the Olympic trials in Indianapolis last week. And the Olympics only happen every 4 years, but these dedicated athletes train around the clock, day in and day out, for the opportunity to compete. And they should be assured that the world competition is fair. So I want to thank the witnesses who are here today and demonstrate their ongoing commitment to drug-free competitive sports. Michael Phelps and Allison Schmitt are 2 of our nation's top Olympic athletes who have both dedicated most of their lives to rigorous training and incredible discipline to showcase their talents and represent the U.S. on the world stage. And both of you have made our country proud through your athletic achievements, and you continue to make us proud by standing up for clean sports. The CEO of the U.S. Anti-Doping Agency, Travis Tigert, is also here, representing an institution that works tirelessly to ensure clean competition and the integrity of sports. USADA's drug testing and educational programs are held up as examples of the strongest and most effective anti-doping programs in the world. And thank you for your important work and the example that you set. I have to note my extreme disappointment and frustration that the World Anti-Doping Agency declined the committee's invitation to testify. WADA is supposed to play a critical role in ensuring that sports are fair and that competitions are clean across the world. They were established to enforce the rules that keep everyone safe and uphold the integrity of global sporting events. It's really outrageous that WADA does not have the courage or integrity to show up and defend itself here tonight. WADA should be protecting clean sport and not hiding from accountability. Now, we need answers directly from WADA about the disturbing allegations against Chinese Olympic swimmers. Recently, the world learned of the allegations of doping amongst Chinese swimmers that happened in early 2021, 7 months before the Tokyo Olympics. It was especially alarming to learn of WADA's role in sweeping these positive tests under the rug and allowing the Chinese anti-doping agency to ignore the rules by not making the violations public and failing to issue proper sanctions on the affected athletes. 13 of those swimmers that tested positive for banned substances competed in Tokyo and won several medals. Not only were there no repercussions for violations of the doping rules at the time, but 11 of those swimmers are on the national team for China now and will compete again in Paris next month. So WADA's mission is to police doping in the international sports arena. The positive tests from the Chinese swimmers raise serious concerns about WADA's effectiveness in this role. To ensure the integrity of international competition, WADA must send an unambiguous message that it will enforce the rules established in the World Anti-Doping Code and apply all sanctions equally for any violation. So we need a full, clear, and truly independent examination of what happened in the case of these swimmers, and equally important, a thorough assessment of WADA's actions and inactions. I'm aware that WADA has commissioned an investigation which is ongoing, is expected to conclude before the end of this month. But WADA should commit to making the results of this investigation public and answering our questions. The international sports community deserves to know what the investigation found and to assess whether the probe was truly independent. All athletes deserve a cop on the beat that will enforce the rules without fear or favor and ensure the integrity of the competition is not being questioned. So I look forward to learning what action is needed to ensure the strong and fair international enforcement of our anti-doping rules. An assessment of the appropriateness of WADA's action must occur to determine what went wrong and how to prevent it from happening again. So I thank all of you, the 3 of you who did show up today, to ensure a level playing field for all athletes and to maintain the integrity of international sports at the highest levels. Thank you again, and thank you, Mr. Chairman. I yield back.
Gentleman yields back. We want to thank our witnesses for being here today and taking the time to testify before the subcommittee. You will have an opportunity to give an opening statement followed by a round of questions from members. I should also mention that concludes the members' opening statements, and the chair reminds members, pursuant to committee rules, all members' written opening statements will be made a part of the record. Please provide those to the clerk promptly. Witnesses, you are aware the subcommittee is holding an oversight hearing, and when doing so, we have the practice of taking testimony under oath. Do you have an objection to testifying under oath? Seeing that none have an objection to testifying under oath, we will proceed. The chair advises you are also entitled to be advised by counsel pursuant to House rules. Do any of you desire to be advised by counsel during your testimony today? As y'all can tell, I'm trying to do this a little fast. Seeing none, please rise and raise your right hand if possible, if you're capable. Do each of you promise or affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God? Seeing the witnesses answered in the affirmative, you are now sworn in and under oath, subject to penalties set forth in Title 18, Section 1001 of the United States Code. With that, we will now recognize Mr. Phelps. Y'all can be seated. We will now recognize Mr. Phelps for 5 minutes to give his opening statement.
Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, good evening. My name is Michael Phelps, and I come before you today, not just as a 5-time retired Olympic swimmer, but also as an advocate for mental health awareness. The conversation around mental health, especially for athletes, is incomplete without addressing the integrity of sport and fair competition. Representing the United States on the world stage has been one of the greatest honors of my life. Through my 15-year career, I competed in over 5 Olympics and 6 World Championships, winning a combined 65 gold medals for my team and my country. My journey in the pool has taught me the values of hard work, dedication, and above all, fairness. It helped me overcome challenges like ADHD and taught me resilience and focus. However, the constant suspicion on doping eroded the mental state that took a lifetime to build. While competing at the highest levels, I witnessed firsthand the pervasive uncertainty and the suspicion surrounding doping, which significantly affected my confidence and that of my fellow athletes. The hardest part was seeing athletes achieve seemingly impossible feats, knowing the immense effort and sacrifices required to reach these heights cleanly. It was disheartening and demoralizing, causing pain and a profound sense of injustice. I know what it takes to achieve the seemingly impossible things the right way. I trained for 5 straight years without taking a single day off. I knew that level of my competition, an extra 52 days of practice, would be necessary to make that difference. Such sacrifice brought me to the highest of highs, also the lowest of lows. But I did it in pursuit of standing on top of the podium, watching the Stars and Stripes, listening to my national anthem play. The last time I spoke at the committee in 2017, it was the first time that I had spoken out about doping and for fairness in sport. I testified to the necessity of an athlete being able to believe in themselves, to compete at such a high level and know that belief in oneself is only